Welcome to Super Showdown, the ultimate destination for epic battles and legendary showdowns. Join us as we put iconic superheroes, villains, and mythological figures against each other in thrilling matches of strength, strategy, and skill. In the farthest reaches of existence, where the laws of time and space held no dominion, two cosmic forces prepared to clash. The battlefield was neither a star system. It was a void between dimensions, an infinite abyss of chaos and order, where the weight of reality itself trembled at the mere presence of these two behemoths. On one side stood Trigon, the devourer of dimensions, the infernal tyrant whose mere gaze could unravel souls. His form towered like a mountain of living malice, his four burning eyes brimming with hatred that had festered across millennia. His crimson skin pulsed with dark sorcery, and his massive horns scraped against the ethereal currents of the void. From within his chest, a black vortex of corrupted souls churned, the echoes of countless civilizations he had consumed. Opposite him, the shadow of all things malevolent loomed. Darkseid, the true Darkseid, not the avatar that plagued the known multiverse, but his authentic, unrestricted form, stood like a monolith of doom. He was not merely a god of conquest. He was the very concept of tyranny made manifest. Unlike his lesser incarnations, this was the dark side that even gods feared to name. His form was not bound by flesh, nor did it conform to mortal understanding. He was a cosmic will, an entity beyond the fabric of creation itself. His glowing red eyes burned not with fire, but with the fundamental principle of dominance, a force that could snuff out existence itself. Between them, the fabric of reality tore itself apart, unable to withstand the magnitude of their presence. The endless abyss between dimensions churned as galaxies flickered in and out of existence, unable to decide whether they should remain or perish in the wake of their looming battle. You are an infection. Darkseid's voice resonated, not as sound but as an immutable law inscribed upon the essence of the cosmos. A parasite that thrives on corruption. Your reign ends today. Trigon's booming laughter shook the infinite void. Foolish thing, he sneered. You speak as if you are my superior. I am destruction incarnate. I have burned realities to ash, crushed pantheons beneath my heel. What is a despot to a god? Darkseid's expression did not change, but the weight of his presence grew heavier. The essence of entropy itself bent to his will, and the abyss around him darkened further. I am not a god, Darkseid intoned. I am the end of all gods. Trigon snarled, extending one massive clawed hand toward Darkseid. The void behind him twisted as 1,000 doomed souls screeched in agony and erupted from his core, forming a nightmarish tide of wailing specters. They rushed toward Darkseid, their very touch capable of consuming the essence of even celestial beings. These were not mere ghosts. They were the remnants of obliterated realities, creatures that fed on the suffering of entire civilizations. Darkseid did not move. He simply willed his presence forward, and the race disintegrated before they could reach him. They did not burn, they did not explode, they simply ceased to be. Trigon's four eyes narrowed. Interesting. Then the demon raised a six-fingered hand and tore open a rift in the void, revealing the dark, beating heart of a universe he had enslaved. The sky within that dimension was aflame, the stars dimmed by the oppressive weight of his rule. From this burning realm, Trigon pulled forth an entire planet, gripping it like a toy between his massive fingers. With a malicious grin, he hurled it at Darkseid with the force of a collapsing supernova. Darkseid stretched out his hand, and the planet froze mid-flight. The sheer pressure of his will crushed it into a singularity, reducing its existence to a single point in space before he erased it completely. The remains of an entire world, an entire civilization, were obliterated in an instant, as if they had never existed. Trigon...
Don't just watch. Subscribe, please.
Smile faltered. A rare sight indeed, he mused. A foe worthy of my wrath. Darkseid did not respond. He merely raised his arm, and from his fingertips, omega beams erupted, not as mere streaks of red energy, but as raw conceptual destruction. These beams did not travel through space. They simply existed at their target's location. They struck Trigon with unerring precision, burning, reducing his massive frame to mere outlines against the darkness. But Trigon did not scream. Instead, he grinned. The wound sealed instantly, and his aura flared with infernal power beyond comprehension. The flames of his soul expanded outward, devouring the very laws of existence that govern the void. The weight of his corruption intensified, turning the abyss into a landscape of writhing, suffering entities, all extensions of his being. "You think yourself beyond destruction," Trigon mocked, his voice reverberating like an earthquake through all creation. "But I am not something you can erase, tyrant. I am corruption itself, the hunger of the abyss. I am the darkness in which all things end." Darkseid's red eyes narrowed slightly. His gaze drifted toward the abyss of writhing entities that formed around Trigon. Then, for the first time, Darkseid smiled. The entire battlefield trembled. The writhing entities, Trigon's extensions, froze as if held in place by some unseen force. Then, one by one, they began to crumble, their very essence breaking down into something more primal, more absolute. "You misunderstand me, demon," Darkseid said, his voice colder than the death of a universe. "I do not need to erase you. I only need to rule you." A new force began to weave through the abyss, the anti-life equation. Trigon's four eyes widened slightly as he felt it burrow into the essence of his being. He had consumed realms, devoured souls, and crushed gods. But this was something different. This was not mere destruction. This was control. For the first time in eons, Trigon felt something akin to dread. Darkseid took a single step forward. "Now," he declared, his voice reshaping the void itself. "Kneel." The void trembled. The war of titans had reached its crescendo. Trigon, the devourer of dimensions, stood frozen in the abyss, his flaming aura flickering erratically as something unnatural coiled around his very essence. The anti-life equation, a force not of destruction but absolute control, slithered to the fibers of his being. It was not merely a weapon, it was a death of free will, the end of self, the absolute subjugation of all things under a singular, unbreakable rule. And Darkseid was its master. Trigon let out a deafening roar, his eyes igniting with defiance. He thrashed against the invisible chains, his will battling against the absolute command of the anti-life equation. He had consumed universes, enslaved celestial beings, and thrived on chaos. How could he, a god of destruction, be shackled like a mindless pawn? "I am Trigon. I do not kneel." The entire void burned with his fury. The space around him twisted into a storm of fire and corruption, an infernal maelstrom that threatened to drown even the fundamental laws of existence. His body split into 1,000 reflections, each an aspect of his boundless power, attacking from every direction. But Darkseid did not flinch. He raised a single hand, and reality stilled. With an imperious gaze, he activated the Mobius chair, a relic of absolute knowledge and cosmic authority. The chair materialized behind him, hovering in the void, pulsating with an eerie glow. The moment Darkseid sat upon it, the universe itself bent to his will. The Mobius chair was omniscient. It granted the secrets of all things, past, present, and future. With it, Darkseid knew every possible way this battle could unfold, every weakness Trigon had, every timeline where Trigon might have emerged victorious. And he erased them all. The moment the Mobius chair glowed, Trigon's 1,000 reflections shattered. His ability to divide his existence across dimensions collapsed, as though an unseen force had written him out of the very fabric of causality. The demon lord howled in rage as the cracks of reality sealed shut, leaving him trapped within a singular form. Darkseid rose in the chair, his crimson gaze piercing through Trigon's very soul. "I have seen every path, every outcome," Darkseid stated coldly. "You're already defeated." Trigon snarled, his aura flaring once more. "You think your equation can break me?" His voice shook the abyss as he raised both hands, summoning a black sun of pure annihilation. A sphere of dark energy pulsed in his grasp, a cosmic heart of entropy that could consume the multiverse itself. "I am destruction incarnate. I will burn you from existence." Darkseid did not respond with words. He responded with finality. He raised his arm, and the Omega Sanction activated. Unlike his standard Omega beams, which destroyed, the Omega Sanction was fate itself. Inescapable, undeniable, the absolute judgment of Darkseid. Beams of searing red light erupted from his eyes, twisting and bending in impossible directions before striking Trigon in the chest. The demon screamed in pain. He felt his existence fracture. Trigon was not being destroyed. He was being exiled. The Omega Sanction forced Trigon into a loop of unending torment. One reality after another, Trigon was cast into dimensions where he was forever a victim, a prisoner in endless cycles of failure. In one, he was a lesser demon serving under beings far weaker than himself. In another, he was mortal, stripped of power, doomed to watch his empire crumble. And in the greatest torment of all, he was nothing, no subjects, no power, no existence, just silence. The black sun in his hands imploded, unable to sustain itself against the power of the Omega Sanction. Trigon, the demon who had destroyed dimensions, let out a final vanishing into the void, lost of the nightmares Darkseid had woven for him. And just like that, it was over. The silence in the abyss was deafening. The war that could have shaken the multiverse had ended not in destruction, but in domination. Darkseid stood alone in the void, victorious. The anti-life equation still crackled in his hands, but there was no need to use it any further. Trigon was no more. With a glance, Darkseid opened a boom tube, a gateway beyond mortal comprehension. He stepped forward, back to his realm, Apokolips, where his throne awaited. The fires of his world burned ever brighter. The iron sky darkened under his shadow, and his Parademon legions trembled as his presence returned. He had proven once more that there were no gods before Darkseid, for in the end, Darkseid is the end.